Hey there, I'm David, and it's been about a week since my last upload, but I actually recorded that video about a month ago, and so it's been about a month since I've documented my progress in the space shooter game. And if you look at my GitHub, there have been a few contributions in the past week on that project, and so I added the GitHub on I think the 14th. Is that right? Yes, I created the repository on the 14th, which was 5 days ago. So, by the way, there is a GitHub repository for the project now. All the code is now open source. You can download the source, you can change it if you want. There have been a few commits, 10 of them. There's now a title screen, health bars for the enemies, um, among other things. Let's look at the code. Alright, so um, there's also a few more classes. Last time you saw the game, there was just a scrolling background, um, and now there's a title screen. By the way, I plan on changing the controls because the way you change the power settings for your ship is just not ideal. But if I play the game, you'll see I have a player and I can shoot enemies, and I have a health bar. Oh wait, hold up, this project needs to be updated. I made some changes on my laptop and I forgot to download them here because the health bars should be below the player but above the enemies. Let's see. That's better. That's much better. I have to look into what causes that spam. I know it's probably something I added for debugging, but I forgot to remove it. But yeah, let me just go through. Oh, here it is. Found it. It's this. I was experimenting with increasing the difficulty over time. Alright, so, what should I start with? There's been a lot of stuff. I did some work off camera, as you can see. Um, there's that meme. Alright, so we now have an actors class, which is a abstract class built off of entities, which add things like health, a scale, a health offset, which basically determines where you should render the health value, among other things. We have the health color value. So 0 is white, I think, and then 1 is red, 2 is green, and 3 is blue. I think that's how it is. So I can change that, and that health offset controls the placement of the health bars. That's all that stuff. Movement code. Yeah. We now have an enemy called Enemy Scout, which is the first enemy class, and it is pretty simple. So if you look at, I guess this is like the AI movement controls in here. It's all based around this if statement, which is we're checking if we can fire, and basically all the enemies that can fire in the game have a delay between shooting, and in this entity that delay is 60. That's 60 ticks or 1 second. So if the enemy has just fired, they want to they're going to be sort of reloading, and so they need to get away from the player. So the way it works is if all right, so if we can fire soon. Oh, sorry, this if statement is if we can fire soon. So if time since last fire is greater than the fire delay, so it's been more than 1 second since it fired. So if that's true, then what we'll do is if we are to the right of the player, move left. If we are to the left of the player, move right. And then if we are within a certain distance of the player, fire, which runs this code in here. Otherwise, if we can't fire soon, there is a randomized Boolean value for each one of these enemies, which is avoid by going right. So if the entity wants to avoid the player by moving right, then we will move right, otherwise move left. And if you play the game, there we go, and we watch the enemies, you'll notice that once one of them spawns, come on, there we go. So he moves towards me. Once he fires, he moves to the left to get away from me. That way it'll be harder for me to shoot him. That's the idea, at least. Yep. So that is that. That's the enemy scout class. The player made some changes too. We now have a power system, which I should explain. Basically, we've got 3 different abilities. Option 0 is weapon, 1 is shield, and 2 I never filled in, but it is engines or speed, I guess. And you have every instant you have 12 units of power to work with, and you can split that up however you wish. So if you want to increase power to the weapons, you can increase that power to the weapons. If you want to increase power to the shield to protect yourself, you can do that, or you can go faster, slower. And to make the game easier to control, there is a delay of 1/6 of a second between when you're allowed to change that. Otherwise, if you try to change it by just 1 unit of power, you would end up doing by like 2 or 3. So that way you can quickly just tap one of the buttons to change that. Right now, the way it's controlled is if you press 1 on the keyboard, you will select weapons as the current changeable power, and then 2 is shield, 3 is engines and speed. So it's these numbers plus 1. And once you selected 1, you can press the R key to increase power to that thing, or the F key to decrease. I don't like that system, and I plan on changing it. So my plan is that I'd like to set it up so that by pressing either 1, 2, or 3, you can increase power to those things. So if you press 1, it will take away power from shield and engines and move it to the weapon. And the way I think it's going to work is you will take 1 unit from each of those, and then if one of those is already empty, then you'll just take 1 from the other. I think that's how it's going to work, at least. That's my plan, at least. Haven't gotten around to making those changes. I also want to add more types of enemies. Here is the get input system. You'll notice that acceleration here is a fixed value. It is set when you create the player entity, which is done by the level class. And when you move up or down, acceleration is multiplied by engine power. But when you move left or right, it is just double acceleration. That way you can still move left and right quickly. And that is because I made some tweaks to acceleration, and I found it was moving too slow after that, so I just doubled it for these two. Probably not the best way I could have done it, but I like it, so yeah. And here's the firing code, which is exactly the same, I think, as the code for enemy scout firing. Is it? Yeah, it is. So I probably could just move this code into the actor class then. But I don't think I will. Or no, I could. I definitely could. But I'm not sure if I will, because other enemy classes might have multiple lasers or something like that, and they will want to have different versions of this. So I guess I could just do the override thing. I don't know. And now here's something interesting. Actors have a very simple damage system. which is if it takes damage, which is a certain amount of health lost, health will be subtracted by that amount. But if that entity is a player, it's a bit different. And the reason it's different is we want the player to always take damage no matter how high their shield strength is. I want the player to always take at least 1 damage point. But the shield can, so let's say that the enemy does 5 units of damage every time it fires. Your shield can stop up to 4 then, but you can't stop all of it. Otherwise, the player could be invincible, and that just isn't right. And I might change that back once I add stronger enemies to the game. But with just the enemy scout in the game right now, that doesn't feel right. Yeah. Perhaps I should go over the way the health bar is drawn. It's pretty simple. You just take a graphics object and a Y point to draw it at, and then from left to right we do little dots that represent how much health you have. And that is done with the textures in here. We have textures called blue and green and red and white. So red, white, and red, white, RGB plus white. Yeah, RGB plus white. So far I haven't used green or white yet, but I figured I might have a use for them later, so I thought I'd add them anyway. You'll notice that when I fire, it's blue, and when enemies fire, which hopefully will happen soon, I've experimented with difficulty scaling, and it makes less enemies show up, but you'll notice that the enemies fire red, and health bars are also red. Yep. So that's that. Is there anything else I wanted to cover? I think that's it. I think I just kind of wanted to get everyone caught up on what has been going on. If you want to play this game for yourself, all you have to do is go to my GitHub page, which is, let me just go to, what is it? github.com/space shooter. I think that should take me right there. Let's see. Yes, it does. So that is the address, github.com/gbwrush/space shooter. And the newest release is from 5 days ago. It's a bit outdated, but I think what I'm planning on doing is after this video goes live, I'm going to make some, or maybe while I'm uploading it, I will make some changes to the difficulty scaling system, because right now it starts too low and it gets too high too fast. So once I might as well cover how that works. Basically, difficulty starts at 0, and then every 60th of a second it increases by 0.00001, and this difficulty value controls the rate at which enemies will spawn. So if math.random is less than or equal to difficulty, an enemy will spawn, which means that enemies will be easier to spawn as that difficulty value goes up. So in the first instant that the game is running, there is almost a 0 chance that enemies will show up, but as it goes up, and after just 1 second, this value will be that, and then after another second it'll be that. So it will go up pretty fast. I'm just not so sure if I like it. I got some feedback from some playtesting people that I asked. I asked people to playtest it, and they all said that the game should start off easy so that you can change your power settings. So I think I would like it to start off easy, but the question is, does it get too hard too fast? So I think I'm going to change how much it increases by, just something even lower, and then perhaps after like 5 seconds, it will start off at a low difficulty amount. That's what I'm thinking about doing. And I'll do that after this video goes live. So if you want to download the game, go to this address. Actually, no, go to this address, and then if you want to get the code, you can just download it with GitHub, or you can go to releases, and hopefully there will be a newer version than 1.3, and and then you can get the newest release to play it. All right. So that about does it for today. Hopefully the next video will go up sooner than next week. I'll see you later.